Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Michelle Fainensteel, and I'm the CEO here at Dirigo Food Safety, and I'm coming to you from a snowy Maine this afternoon. And I thought I'd just jump on a Facebook Live session and reach out to the audience and talk about HACCP. You know, it's the middle of winter, it feels like, even though spring's around the corner. And everybody's looking to get things done come springtime. And one of the things, if you're in food production in a couple of different areas, that you have to start thinking about is a HACCP plan. So where do we use HACCP? Who's regulated by the HACCP regulations? That's what we're going to go over in the next couple of minutes. Of course, this is live. If you would like to pop on and ask questions, I'll be happy to take questions either on here or in the news feed afterwards. You can also go to the Dirigo Food Safety page and navigate over to resources and read more about the 12 steps of HACCP. I put the URL up in the, I don't know even what that's called, the info box for this live feed. So anyway, so what is HACCP? Well, HACCP is a way of writing food safety plans. It's a very specific way of writing food safety plans. It actually came to us from NASA back when we were trying to feed astronauts to get up into space. It's evolved since then, and we have a couple of areas where we really think about HACCP. We have the first HACCP planning that was out there was fisheries HACCP, and that's regulated by the FDA. And actually, when we talk about fisheries HACCP, the language is a little different than the other kinds of HACCP plans that we talk about. And I'll have more information on that. I'm actually going to train the trainer for fisheries HACCP at the end of the month, and I'll be offering in-person live trainings on fisheries HACCP for companies. So get in touch with us about that if you're interested and you're in the fisheries world. So we have fisheries HACCP by the FDA. We have juice HACCP by the FDA, which is pretty different from fisheries HACCP. Okay. And then we have meat and poultry HACCP over at the USDA. That's probably the one most people are familiar with. That's certainly one that got the most press. Came out in 1996, known as the Mega Reg from the USDA. And that happened after the incidents at Jack in the Box, where several children were killed because of Shiga toxin E. coli in the beef. And we've been under the Mega Reg now, I guess, for 20 years, really. And HACCP is a way of life. So over on the FDA side of the house, there's been a new set of what we call hazards-based planning, and those are called preventive controls plans. And so if you're not fish, juice, meat and poultry, you're probably under FSMA or preventive controls plans in some way or another. And I'll be talking about those in another Facebook Live session next week. So, but today I really want to talk about HACCP. HACCP stands for Hazard Analysis for Critical Control Points. And around Dirigo Food Safety, we like to call it a 12-step program. The first step is to realize that you are, in fact, powerless in the face of government regulations sometimes, and if you do juice, seafood, meat, or poultry, you have to write a HACCP plan. Okay, so there are actually 12 steps of HACCP. There are the 5 pre-steps of HACCP, which I'm going to talk about today, and then the 6th step, which is writing a hazard analysis, and then all the other work basically comes out of those, of doing those first 6 steps really, really well. Okay, so the first step is forming your food safety team. Your food safety team should be comprised of people who are trained. They can be formally trained or must be formally trained in a meat and poultry HACCP course or juice HACCP course or fisheries HACCP course. They should also probably have on-the-job training and really understand how systems work, good manufacturing practices, that sort of thing. All right, they should be comprised of bunches of different kinds of people if you have them in your facility. I always recommend having somebody from shipping and receiving on your HACCP team because that's they are the eyes and ears of your plant. They know what's going on in your plant. 2, if you're an owner-operator, clearly you're going to be on the HACCP team, but you need to be on the HACCP team with a couple of different hats on. You need to be on the HACCP team with your finance hat on, with your marketing hat on, because those jobs really need to understand HACCP. Okay, so we form our HACCP team, all right? And then the next thing we do is we describe our food. You need to be able to describe your food in incredibly complex detail. All of the ingredients, all of the packaging, any allergens that are associated with it, any labeling that's associated with it. And I also highly recommend that you talk about where you get all of your supplies from in this process. So what is your food, okay? Then the third step of HACCP is to describe your intended consumer. Now, your intended consumer is the person who actually eats your food, all right? And they eat it how they eat it. If you have a food that you know is commonly consumed raw, you have to make it as a ready-to-eat food, okay? There's much historical and case precedent around companies saying, but my food is meant to be cooked, all right? This is Nestle and chocolate chip cookie dough when they came out with chocolate chip cookie dough in tubes, and people ate it raw and they got sick, okay? You have to understand how people interact with your food, and you have to meet them where they are. Okay, so you describe your food. You should not have cats in your food. All right, so you describe your food, all right, and then you describe your user, all right? Your user, if you are selling into the institutional food stream and that sort of thing, you have to add additional food safety planning. If you're selling to institutions with kids or even college kids or elderly people, there's additional food safety planning that you need to do, okay? Then the fourth step of HACCP is you have to describe your process. All processes are comprised of the following set of steps. You receive stuff, you store stuff, you process stuff. Now that's, how you make your food really. You package and label stuff, you store finished product, and you get rid of it, all right? Those 6 steps need to be in every single process flow diagram. Now, there are other steps. You probably have a refuse step, you may have a rework step, you may have, and what you really will have is a variety of things around what your process actually is. So you probably have to unpack things, you may have to slack things, that sort of thing. And so that's the fourth step of your HACCP plan, okay? And then the fifth step is you have to verify that process flow diagram. And basically what I tell people is you should find a friend, find your accountant, your bookkeeper, somebody who is reasonably conversant in your product, and ask them to take your process flow diagram and use it as a map and walk through the process as it occurs, okay? And they will be able to tell you if you have mapped out, receive stuff, store stuff, process stuff, etc., accurately. Buy them a beer, okay? That's the fifth step of writing a HACCP plan, okay? And then the sixth step is doing the actual hazard analysis. So HACCP stands for, again, hazard analysis for critical control points, okay? That hazard analysis is where we talk about the biological, chemical, and physical things that can go wrong with your food. Hazards are things that cause foodborne illness, all right? And if you do these first steps correctly, the rest of the HACCP planning, determining critical control points, critical limits, verifying, validating, writing your monitoring, and doing your record keeping actually are a lot easier. And when I teach these classes, more than half the time is spent on the first 6 steps of HACCP and understanding the hazards that go wrong with your food. Because if you do those steps correctly, you precondition yourself for success and understanding what your product is and what your process is. And that's how you make safe food. I'm Dr. Michelle Fanensteel, and I'd love to see you over on my page. You can find a whole write-up of these 12 steps of HACCP at dirigofoodSafety.com/12step for 12 steps. The URL is also in the info box, and we'll see you next week as we talk more about food safety and profitable local food businesses. Thanks so much.